I'm Charlie Sykes, and Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the president gives himself an incomplete and asks for a second term. Disappointing jobs numbers. The economy added just 96,000 jobs in August, below expectations. The unemployment rate dropped to 8.1%, but only because so many Americans gave up looking for work. The national debt hit $16 trillion. And if you're doing the math, that's $16,000 billion. Is still too big a number? How about $136,000 in debt per household? Are you ready for some football? The Packers get ready for their regular season opener later today. Governor Walker returns from a surprise trip to visit the troops in Kosovo. But first, we start with the Democrats. Now, last week it was the president's turn to make his case. First Lady Michelle Obama rocked the House, followed by a classic stem winder from former President Bill Clinton. But the main event was President Obama's acceptance speech.
We're compelled as citizens. We understand that America is not about what can be done for us. It's about what can be done by us, together, through the hard and frustrating but necessary work of self-government. That's what we believe. So you see, the election 4 years ago wasn't about me. It was about you. My fellow citizens, you were the change.
We love.
Wisconsin Senate candidate Tammy Baldwin also got her shot, although she was moved from her prime time speaking slot to an earlier slot. Now, joining me on our panel this morning, the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute's Christian Schneider, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Michael Holt, and Media Tracker's Brian Sickman. I want to ask you, Michael, did the president get the bump out of this convention that he wanted to?
Well, if he did, I think it was somebody here came out the balloon the next day when the unemployment figures came out, last Friday. But, I think the intent of the convention is to inspire your base, right, and to motivate them to go out. And in that regard, he did, because it was a lot more enthusiasm there than it was for the Republican convention. Okay,
Brian Sickman.
I think that listening on Thursday night to the president's speech, I couldn't help but notice it's almost like there was two Democratic National Conventions. There was the one that, from Tuesday all the way through the president's started the president's speech, and then when the president got up there, he felt like he had to try to reset the campaign. You could tell there was a lot of damage control going on. He's trying to counteract that remark he made about you didn't build that. He tried to counteract the embarrassment over God and Jerusalem not being included in the platform. And the president really seemed to try to cast this as, let's reset the last 4 years. Let's go back to that night 4 years ago when in Denver you nominated me to be your candidate. Let's try to relive that magic. But it was really short on substance.
Okay, did it work?
To me, it didn't work at all. I mean, I think the president is actually kind of stung by all the criticism of all the speeches, these grand speeches that he gives, and so I think the speech that he gave on Thursday night was too small. I mean, it was just really petty. To quote Paul Ryan, he was like a pyromaniac in a field of straw men. I mean, it was just at some point he said Republicans, their answer to joblessness is to get rid of all government. I don't recall Mitt Romney saying that at any point. So I just thought it was too small.
I thought it was flat. I mean, I really thought that it was flat. And Peggy Noonan said, it seemed old, stale, and out of juice. And I think the contrast between talking about 2008 and 2012, when he embodied all of the hope and change and all of the rhetoric was so soaring. And when he went through some of the promises of the things he was going to do, they were recycled promises from 4 years ago, and I think probably reminded some folks of, okay, we've heard this before, and it didn't work out.
But he acknowledged that not everything he put on the table actually worked. And I think he's more pragmatic now than he was in the past. And he sees all these detours and sees the opposition. He thought that he could actually bring some change, that Republicans would jump on board, because they would put America before parties, but Republicans never did.
See, we'll have to see how this all plays out, but I agree with what you said before, that whatever the bump from the speech, and I don't think there was much, obviously was lost with the terrible jobs numbers that came out on Friday morning. But I guess the other thing is that here you had a convention that clearly has moved to the left, and I wonder how many Americans looked at the Democrats and said, they don't represent me. This is not your father and your mother's Democratic Party. Now, what was the significance of that weird moment. And, you know, I mean, the Republicans had their weird moment with Clint Eastwood. The Democrats had their moment when they had the motion to put Jerusalem and God back into the platform, and they had to vote 3 times on this. Now, I mean, what is that about?
I think it demonstrates that the delegates that were down there really don't represent the old-style Democrats from several election cycles ago. I mean, Bill Clinton is now to the right of his party, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, that used to be the mainstream. You know, they were unashamed to talk about faith, Jerusalem. Those were common things. I think now the party's moved so far to the left, they're almost shocking themselves when they look in the mirror.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be on camera booing God at any point in your
well,
convention.
in fairness, I think they were booing the approach to vote counting.
Right.
But which I also thought was
also
interesting because you needed a 2/3 vote, and they had to vote 3 times. And the mayor of Los Angeles is up there, and he clearly knows he has to say that it passed, but it clearly is not passing. It was awkward.
But there were 2 conventions. There was the convention for the primetime audience at from 9 to 10, and then there was the rest of the convention, which was just an abortion fest from beginning to end. I mean, it was just speaker after speaker after speaker, and you just wonder why they would sanitize it, just for the last because.
Okay, Tammy Baldwin. This was billed as her big moment, coming out of the national stage. She was supposed to speak about 7 o'clock Milwaukee time. She was moved up into the 5 o'clock hour. I mean, that's a pretty huge diss, isn't it?
Yeah, and she's going to get no bump out of this whatsoever. I mean, during her speech, she says, "Well, Scott Walker doesn't represent the Wisconsin that I know." Well, you better go introduce yourself to the 54% of the Wisconsin that you apparently don't know, because she's got an election to win, and I don't think she gained anything in her speech.
I mean, that was my question. It's not a national audience that's going to vote for her. Yeah. So it's really focused just on Wisconsin.
But nobody saw it.
Yeah, I mean, the delegation, she was there to inspire her base as well, and to try to put some clear distinctions. And of course, she wasn't going to add a whole bunch of substance about her particular record in there at the time.
As of right now, who is ahead in the state of Wisconsin in the presidential race? Michael Holt.
Barack Obama.
Who do you think's ahead?
Obama slightly.
I'd say the margin goes slightly to Obama.
I would say that he's slightly ahead, but
I'd rather be the momentum guy.
Well, I think that's the question, and whether or not we're going to find out very shortly whether or not the Republicans are going to be putting in the money and the resources. I thought it was very interesting that one of the Obama super PACs did decide to begin running ads in Wisconsin because, well, they must be seeing something that Wisconsin is in play. Still ahead on Sunday Insight, is Paul Ryan's golden glow rubbed off already? And coming up next, the new Capitol Police chiefs vow to crack down on protesters. There's a new sheriff in town, or at least a new Capitol Police chief in Madison, who's starting to crack down on some of the chronic protesters. Now, one of those protesters is Jeremy Ryan, known affectionately as Segway Jeremy, or not so affectionately, because, well, yeah, he rides around on a Segway. According to police reports released last week, Ryan was arrested on harassment charges for singing and chanting outside the Capitol's press room, mocking the death of the late Dick Wheeler. Dick Wheeler, a longtime and respected member of the press corps who died last year. His daughter, Gwyn Gunther, who now runs the Wheeler Report, was so upset by the continuing harassment, she moved out of the press room, which, interesting little detail here, is named after her father. In the police report, she expressed frustration that other reporters who witnessed the ongoing harassment refused to file complaints, although they were willing to answer questions from Capitol Police. One reporter from the Associated Press told the Capitol Police, quote, "If something is not done about the protesters inside the Capitol, someone is going to get hurt. It may not be today, tomorrow, or next month, but eventually someone is going to get hurt." Brian Sikma, there's a number of things that are remarkable about this, including just how crude the protesters have become. But as of this taping, no print media has reported a word about it, even though reporters are directly involved in the story.
I have no idea what's happening with that. It's fascinating. I mean, here you have a shameless act. I mean, this isn't about, the protesters. Jeremy Ryan himself was couching this. This is free speech, First Amendment. You don't have a First Amendment right to harass someone. I mean, if you feel that way, you can write about it. But to stand outside the Capitol press room and sing about this, I really don't know why print media is not picking up on this. I mean, I can understand there may be a reluctance at first. They want to prejudice themselves. But here we have somebody who's harassing them, and they should be going out there writing this. The Capitol Times, since this arrest was made, has written twice quoting Jeremy Ryan, which I think is fascinating, because here's a newspaper whose own reporters testified to the police. They were included in the police report, and they're not even mentioning his antics at all in their reporting.
Okay, Michael Holt, you're a journalist.
Yeah, I think that
somebody is doing this to your colleague. Do you write about it?
Oh, yeah.
If somebody was standing
would.
outside your office, say, chanting racial slogans, you don't think there'd be a news story there?
Yeah, but it'd be a different kind of news
Right.
story. It'd be about me going out there to confront them, and then I would be, in the lead paragraph. You do have Constitution. You do have a right to harass anybody as long as you don't cross that invisible line, you don't put your hand in their face, etc. But it comes a point when discretion dictates that you be civil at least, and when you don't, I think the media has a vested interest in getting involved in this.
Yeah, apparently things are getting so bad up there. The new Capitol Police Chief says women should start smacking around protesters if they feel threatened. In fairness, one of the reporters there has actually written 3 articles that mention Jeremy Ryan about his arrests and things like that. But you would think that this would be, just the human interest story of the Wheeler story. You think would be really interesting. It's funny. You go talk to anybody that works at the Capitol or any state legislator that works at the Capitol. Everybody has a story, maybe not as bad as this, but some kind of story like that, and they're all willing to talk about it, and you don't really hear about it that much.
There are 2 things that I think are puzzling about the media coverage of this. I mean, number one, puzzling is a nice word. Number one, as you point out, there's the human interest story. I mean, here is Gwen Gunther, who is having to move out of the press room, named for her late father. There's a story there, obviously involving somebody who's well known in the Capitol. But number 2, we continue to have stories about the Capitol, the crackdown by the new police chief, who's arguing that things have gotten out of hand, and yet some of the reporters who have witnessed this are writing about the crackdown without reference to this kind of story, which I'm guessing that outsiders would think casts some light on why there's a crackdown, what's going on in the Capitol.
Yeah, I think you look at what the Dane County DA has or has not. I mean, that may explain why the Capitol Police now have to step in and crack down, because they've tried to enforce the law in the past, and the Dane County DA keeps giving a pass to these people, saying, hey, you can harass people, go ahead, nothing to see here.
Yeah, at a certain point, and in the police report, Gwen Gunther, who is the head of the Capitol Correspondents Association, expresses frustration because the other reporters apparently were told by their editors, don't file complaints. We will talk about it, but we won't file complaints. So she's looking around, looking for the support from her colleagues, and she's not getting it. Coming up next on Sunday Insight, Paul Ryan's alleged misstatements cause a media frenzy. Is the Golden Boy's golden glow wearing off? Well, that didn't take long. The honeymoon for Paul Ryan did not even last a week as Democrats in the media jumped on alleged misstatements and exaggerations in his VP acceptance speech. Until last week, Paul Ryan was a golden boy who enjoyed positive media coverage, but that was then. This is now. So the question is, Christian Schneider, has the glow rubbed off Paul Ryan? Is he being turned into this year's version of Dan Quayle or Sarah Palin?
Well, for the media, I think it has. I mean, we saw this in 2008 when, John McCain was the darling of the media, and then suddenly he became important, and then he wasn't such a darling anymore. When all the stuff, all the talking points about, well, Paul Ryan's a liar and all that stuff were out there, I was thinking, well, maybe this might have some kind of effect on low information voters. But then I watched President Obama's speech this week, and you see how much he talked about Paul Ryan's plan and his own plan. He didn't speak about it almost at all because Republicans are winning this issue.
Which issue?
The health care issue. Paul Ryan's plan is actually gaining traction among the public, so I don't think the bloom's coming off the rose at all. I think they're winning this issue. Democrats didn't expect it, and it's going to make a difference the rest of the race.
Okay, now you did predict, though. You did call this one. You called the shot that the media was going to turn like a dime on Paul Ryan. So you're really not surprised?
I am not surprised, no.
Okay.
You're exactly wrong.
This will not be the first time.
They are turning on Paul Ryan because now they've had time to actually start looking into his background and dissecting his so-called budget plan. And when you start really dissecting and you see that students going to be hurt, the middle class is going to be hurt, look at what he does to Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid. So people are dissected. He has now become the image of this campaign. He's behind Mitt Romney, but he's actually in front of Mitt Romney because he's the one that came up with the budget plan. So he's going to be under attack for the next 3-4 months.
Brian Sickman.
Presidential campaigns aren't kid glove affairs. I think we all knew that sooner or later the media was going to pull the gloves off and start hitting Paul Ryan bare knuckles, and the Obama campaign was going to do that. This whole thing with the marathon time, for example, I mean, Paul Ryan, people that know him here in Wisconsin, he's not given to exaggeration. The whole reason they want to focus on that is because they don't want to focus on the marathon deficit spending that the president's has put the country through for the past 3.5 years. So they take this little issue, want to magnify fight instead of talking about the real
issues.
issues.
Let's talk about this marathon issue. I mean, first of all, he's not a marathon runner. He's never claimed to be a marathon runner, and he gets the number wrong by a full hour. Now, my experience with exaggerators is that they don't go a full hour, go from 4 hours down to 3 hours. They'll do what Schneider does. He'll take 10 minutes off, or he'll say he does something like that. But that was so obviously a misstatement of fact. But it's an indication, though, that they seem to be pursuing that particular narrative, even though, I mean, I've gone over this stuff. I don't think he misstated anything about the Janesville plant. I don't think he misstated anything about the Simpson Bowles Commission. Yeah. And what you're talking about in terms of the budget. See, I think that you said that Christian Schneider was absolutely wrong, but did you notice how much time the president spent in his speech talking about the Medicare plan?
He didn't have to because he had Bill Clinton. Speaking about, and Bill Clinton laid it all out the day before, so he didn't really have to. All he had to do was inspire folks. When you say the Janesville plant, didn't Paul Ryan say it was closed up under Obama?
It was.
Yeah, April of 2009.
Yeah, it was closed in April of 2009.
It was announced to be closed.
Yes.
It was announced, though, under Bush.
Yes, it was.
I mean, so...
It was.
When Barack campaigned there, he knew it had been announced to be closed.
We can go around that, but I think the point is, though, that the Democrats thought that one of their magic bullets was going to be the Medicare plan. The fact it did not come up in the president's speech last night, I think, is telling. I mean, you think about the bullets in the gun that the Democrats were going to use against Romney and Ryan. The Bain Capital for Romney, the Medicare reform for Ryan. And they've kind of shot their wad on that, haven't they?
Yeah, as soon as they picked Ryan, I would have bet that in Obama's convention speech, maybe, his convention speech, he would have spent half the speech talking about Paul Ryan's Medicare plan. But it doesn't happen because he's actually put the plan out there, and he's winning this argument.
He did talk about vouchers. Said I would never allow vouchers.
He skimmed right by it, though.
It was to keep the base happy.
Yeah, I mean, if you thought you could win this election, remember Democrats were thinking, oh, this is a fantastic thing for us, the Paul Ryan, because we're going to win this election on the Republicans wanting to push Granny over the cliff. Now,
it's still going to be the focus. I can guarantee you it's going to be the focus. They're going to dissect, re-dissect, and they're going to talk about students, how it's going to affect them. They're going to talk Medicaid, not Medicare.
Well, you're
cutting $2 trillion from that.
You're right that the Obama campaign is going to run against Mitt Romney because they can't run on their own record, can they?
No, they're going to run against Mitt Romney because he doesn't have a plan, and he wants to, as Clinton said, he wants to return us to the bad arithmetic that got us in this mess from the beginning.
Now, I guess that, we have known Paul Ryan for a long time, and Paul Ryan is probably the most knowledgeable budget guy. I guess the question is, have these shots and the negative media coverage, have they reduced his effectiveness on the ticket?
I don't think they have. I think he's still a plus. I think he's in the Democrats' heads right now, and they're playing on the Republicans' field.
Okay, next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week, but first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Christian Schneider, you're first.
My loser this week is President Barack Obama. Unfortunately for him, voters will forget his petty convention speech on Thursday night, but remember the disastrous jobs numbers released the following morning. His convention bump is going to look more like a pimple. My winners this week are Wisconsin's football fans. For over a year, Wisconsinites have been beating on each other in the political arena. Now it's time to take on other states on the gridiron. Today we can all begin the healing process as the Packers will divide and conquer the 49ers on the way to the Super Bowl.
Michael.
I almost agree with for different reasons. I think the big winner was Bill Clinton. I think he reemerged and rewrote history along the way. Remember, we used to hate him and now we love him again and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe the biggest winner might have been Hillary, because I think he set the stage for 2016. My losers, given what happened in the Capitol with the protests, the recall elections, and now this convention and divisions in America, I'm really afraid for America right now, to be quite honest. It feels a lot like 1968, and we know what happened right after that.
Brian Sigma.
Well, my hero of the week is Air Force Staff Sergeant Kyle Clapridge, an elite pararescueman from Elm Grove, Wisconsin. Clapridge was recently awarded the Purple Heart and the Combat Action Medal for heroically saving the lives of Navy SEALs and Afghan commandos caught in a minefield the night of September 7th, 2011. Sergeant, thank you for your service. Speaking to the Democratic National Convention on Thursday, Congresswoman and U.S. Senate candidate Tammy Baldwin misrepresented the facts about Wisconsin nurses. Contrary to what she claimed and suggested, Wisconsin nurses were not targeted by the budget reforms of 2011. For using math that doesn't add up and not paying attention to the facts, Baldwin is my loser this week.
Well, I'm with Christian on this. My loser, the economy. Despite all the rhetoric about jobs, the jobs numbers on Friday were dismal. The only reason the unemployment rate dropped was that more than 360,000 more Americans gave up looking for work. The unemployment rate has now been above 8% for 43 straight months, the longest stretch since the Great Depression. My winner? Football fans. Enough politics. Bring on the Packers. Thanks for joining us and join me for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.